Hi everyone, I'm Tereza Yerimyan, Government Affairs Director at the ANCA. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, we're going to take a little bit of a break from talking about policy with elected officials and actually talk to our grassroots advocates, our local leadership, about more of the process and those who are affecting the very policies that we discuss with elected officials, and those are grassroots advocates. So today we have the distinct honor of speaking to our local leadership in Pennsylvania, Lorig Baronian and Alidz Oshagan, as well as my partner in crime on the East Coast, the one who handles all 31 states in the Eastern region, Dr. Tamar Gregorian. Dr. Tamar, can you kick us off, please?
Thanks, Tereza, and thank you all for being here. Alidz, Lorig, it's a pleasure to be here with you all today. As you all know, the ANCA Eastern region is comprised of a network of grassroots activists in 31 states. So as Tereza mentioned, I work with, and I have the pleasure of working with activists in 31 states through a network of 33 local ANCs, Pennsylvania being one of them. These are our grassroots activists who work to mobilize their communities as well as their elected officials, and that is on a city, state, and national level. Although our activism goes back 60 years in the region, the 2020 Artsakh War undoubtedly led to a resurgence of activism on many levels. So whether we've been working in the past on Armenian genocide recognition, which we were, with our army of grassroots activists, able to successfully secure in both chambers of Congress in 2019, or whether we're working on recognition for Artsakh or fighting to save the funding for the demining efforts in Artsakh, we have always been active. But in July of 2020, amidst, of course, a global pandemic, the very existence of our people and our nation were at stake, and the response was truly overwhelming. Our region took to the streets, literally, to the phones, sounding the alarms with their mayors, with city council members, state legislators, governors, and congressional leaders, of course. They wanted to make their voices heard loud and clear. They demanded action. They wanted condemnation of the attacks, of course. And then, of course, in September of 2020, we saw more aggression and, of course, outright attacks on Artsakh this time. We know that 2020 had other plans in store for all of humanity. We had moved all of our activism online in the beginning of 2020, and we clearly had to ramp up even more with the attacks on Artsakh in September. The indiscriminate attacks against civilians, against infrastructure, against the servicemen and women were felt here and throughout the diaspora, throughout the world. And our region, even in those darkest of days, stood up. Our activists stood up. They doubled, they tripled, and even quadrupled their efforts. I mean, to say they were working 24/7 is literally not an exaggeration. We pushed, as a region, hundreds of thousands of letters into congressional offices. We lit up their phone lines. We, on a state and federal level, worked extremely hard as a region. And the team that you see here today, the team in Pennsylvania, need to be celebrated. Their activism and their efforts needs to be celebrated. And I'm just, in awe of the work they did. The ANC of Pennsylvania's engagement and activism, a leadership, a team of 8 in a swing state with dozens of federal districts. Let's not forget that we were also dealing with an election year, and Pennsylvania was, of course, a very pivotal state in any election. After all, Haitad is powered by the people, and these ladies here today, and of course the leadership that they represent and the community that they represent, are truly remarkable. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. And there's a lot to unpack in what you said. There's a great point you made on there, and I just want to emphasize, the sun never sets on Haitad. 24/7 is an understatement. No matter what country or what time zone you're in. Our folks here in the US are working alongside that. And it's remarkable to see, over the course of the decades, how activism has truly evolved, how we've been engaging the youth, and how our base has constantly been building up. So I do want to encourage everyone, as we have these discussions and learn about how advocacy evolved and maybe changed or got strengthened during this pandemic and during the war, truly thinking about how are you going to get involved? What steps are you going to take? Truly, there is a space for every single individual to be a part of HITAD, to make this work your own, and to join our local leaders, whether it be in Pennsylvania or in Michigan, anywhere a chapter exists, or if one happens to not, connecting with Tamar on the Eastern region to discuss how you can help develop an ANC chapter in your municipality. With that, I do want to pass it to Lorig and Alidz, so we can start discussing, the great work that you guys have been doing, and really what challenges you were faced with and how you overcame them during both the pandemic and the war. Now, as we say, the sun never sets on HITAD. The pandemic did provide new challenges of communication, but really the ANCA has been, we went from going door to door to making phone calls to utilizing any which method we got the attention of a staffer with, and then members, of course. So, Lorig and Alidz, tell us a little bit about what you've done during the pandemic to keep Pennsylvania Armenians engaged on federal level issues.
So I am born and raised in the Philadelphia area, and I've been working with the ANCA since I was a teenager in this region. So I am fortunate enough to know most of the community here because I spent my entire life here. We've had engagement in this community with the ANCA for years, but it's not consistent. It's always there, but it's more consistent when there is a big push on specific legislation, as Tamar was speaking about before with the Armenian genocide resolution about a year and a half ago. And of course, the war in Artsakh really got this community united and everybody wanted to do something. So we were able to get ourselves organized rather quickly, I think. And I will let Alidz speak to how we organize ourselves as an ANC of PA community. But I think the pandemic kind of afforded us a few positives in that we had more time to spend on the phone. We were able to engage people in different ways through video calls, through social networking, through making calls to people across the state to try and get to know who they are and find out how they can help us in getting our needs met with our legislators. And that goes for Armenian communities as well as non-Armenian communities that may be willing to roll up their sleeves and work with us.
Thanks, Lorig. Yeah, we, in terms of the committee that Lorig and I were on, we were a core team of about 5-6 people, and basically we split ourselves up. It was a true team effort to get the community activated and reach out to the Congress people across the 18 districts of Pennsylvania. We assigned ourselves essentially to areas that we were familiar with, either where we lived or where we worked. And each of us would work on that particular congressperson. And we would reach out to at least between 5 and a dozen constituents in the area specifically to participate in virtual Zoom meetings with that congressperson. And that is, as Lorig said, one positive of the pandemic is that it was fairly simple once we got the attention of the congressperson and their staff to schedule a meeting with them because it was virtual. So the logistics were streamlined, as well as with our constituents. More people were able to attend the meetings with the Congress people, and that visibility really helped to underscore how important the issues were that we were contacting them about. I would say that our team really shined with our communication with the Congress people, making sure that constituents in the district called, continued to call, and otherwise contact the Congress people, that we followed up with meetings, that we followed up on our follow-up meetings to make sure that our requests were heard, and that we got results. And a lot of the Congress people across the district, especially in the greater Philadelphia area, were newly elected. So we didn't have longstanding relationships with them. So it was really an opportunity to activate those relationships, to introduce ourselves as the ANCA of Pennsylvania. You know, we are here. This is what we do. Here are your Armenian Americans constituents, and this is what we care about. And since then, what I have seen are real results in terms of being able to go back to those Congress people and calling on them for further support from the fall, when we were primarily focused on the resolutions with Artsakh.
Ali, you just started to touch on this, but really, what has been the response from Congress been because of kind of this activation, this very personalized activation that your chapter has engaged in?
It's been very positive. I'll speak to a couple of the Congress people that I worked with directly, and Lorig can speak to more as well. But for example, we had a congressman in the Philadelphia area who initially was on the Turkish caucus. And we approached him and we set up a Zoom call with his staffers. We had many constituents join us to share their stories of what was going on in Artsakh. And at the end of that first meeting, we were told that the congressman would be joining the Armenian caucus, which we considered to be a victory. And since then, that congressperson also co-sponsored House Resolution 1165, which of course, as we know, condemned Azerbaijan and Turkey for their acts of aggression. And in another instance, we reached out to a congressman in Center City, Philadelphia, where we do have a number of Armenians. But and so I think that the congressman was aware that there were Armenians in his district, but hadn't been contacted particularly recently on any hot button items. And so we had a Zoom call with his staffers, had a lot of good calling in and follow-ups, and that congressperson signed on to both 1165 and 1203 resolutions, which was also a great victory. I'm sure Lorig has more, has other Congress men and women stories to share.
I feel like it was a lot simpler for us in the southeastern PA area, which encompasses greater Philadelphia, because we have so many Armenians concentrated in this area, possibly 10,000, maybe more, I'm not even sure. We have 5 churches just in this immediate area surrounding Philadelphia. But, you know, then we go across the state all the way west to Pittsburgh, where we still have a concentrated population of Armenians, but not nearly as many as we have in the greater Philadelphia area. So getting engagement from the Congress people in the Pittsburgh area was a little harder than southeastern Pennsylvania, because they're not familiar with our churches, our community centers, things that they drive past regularly, like our Armenian day school that we have here. But we were successful in getting our Pittsburgh area representatives to sign on to legislation as well, with the help of the Pittsburgh community. And then, as we mentioned earlier, we have 18 districts in this state. And how do we get to everybody? 1 through 7, greater Philadelphia area, 2 districts out near Philadelphia. That still leaves us with 9 districts to go, where we really had to scour the internet to find constituents across the state to fill those communication gaps and make sure that all of our representatives were hearing from us. And we ended up getting touch points, I think, in every district except for 1 or 2, maybe. Alidz, correct me if I'm wrong, but we found people that lived across this state who were able to follow up with their representatives over email and Twitter. And we really focused on that one call, one tweet, one email, together we make a big difference. Pile that on. Plus one is two, plus, just keep adding. And we were able to build relationships with these representative staffers. Now, we have to maintain those relationships, of course. Some are easier than others, but we found that the staffers were very receptive, and we were able to get a large percentage of the Pennsylvania representatives to sign on to at least 1165 last year.
Yeah, I think we ended up, Lorig, correct me if I'm wrong, but we ended up having a Zoom call with a staffer from almost every district in Pennsylvania. Almost. We were maybe a couple short.
One or two. Yep.
Right. And then, there's Pittsburgh, and then there's the Philly area, as Lorig mentioned, and then there's all the districts in between where you've got Armenians that are like few and far between, if any. And so it was really, it is truly grassroots, being able to reach out to people who you don't know, who are from an area you've never been to in Pennsylvania, to say, hey, this is what's going on. Can you please reach out to your congressperson? We will help facilitate a Zoom call with them. Can you join? Let's do this together.
And I think just
we also met a lot of interesting people.
Lorig, I was just about to point out, I think in just hearing both of you talk about this, it seems like it's giving both of you and your team's energy as well, meeting all of these, folks who came out of the woodwork in the state of Pennsylvania, and just learning their stories and helping them communicate those stories to members' offices.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Both of you touched on this, but we see waves of engagement. Folks tend to become more engaged as topics get to the point of being voted on or get attacked in some way or form. Tamar mentioned in 2019, House versus the Armenian Genocide Resolution, and the Senate resolution, of course, passing by unanimous consent. And then, of course, the Artsakh War. Now, in the case of the war, we see that obviously the repercussions are ongoing. And so activists need to continue to engage with local electeds. And we're not in a situation where we can afford for that kind of collapse in level activity. So what are you doing? What are you guys engaging with your teams to keep activists engaged? Maybe not completely to the levels that they were during the war, but at least, as active as possible, and more so than in the past prior to these peaks of engagement.
I think that area.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
Go ahead, Alidz.
Okay, I was going to say that I think that first, one good thing is continuing the relationships with the staffers and us is key to follow-up requests. We know these staffers now, when I can say that a year ago, we didn't largely. And now that we've built a relationship with them from such close and continued contact back in the fall, we are able to come in and with credibility make asks, because now the staffers know the power that's behind us, the grassroots power that is behind us. But in terms of maintaining the connection with constituents, I think it's the same process in terms of getting in touch with them and letting them know what's going on and asking them to make the call or to send an email or to get engaged on social media and following through to make sure that happens.
I think social media has also been a big help in the case of, having so many districts across Pennsylvania that we can't reach, because we were able to find communities of Armenians through Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, where that's how we were able to engage them. And now we are a part of their community, and now we're working with them. They know us. We've become friends. We connect through them through their Facebook groups and let them know what's going on and what's needed and how they can engage. And it's been helpful because now they know who we are. They're very responsive. they know they have to make the call. They make the call, and they're very happy to do it.
Fantastic. This goes back to the fact that all politics are local. The better and more engaged your local communities are with these electeds, involved maybe in their elections, to, engaging them at town halls when things are more in person, to even the online and the virtual town halls. That personal connection really has taken us to the end zone, right? And you mentioned now that you guys are very well connected to the staff. As kind of the federal end here in Washington, D.C., I see that difference. When I send a note out to foreign affairs staffers, the response rate and the speed of response for the Pennsylvania delegation has exceedingly increased because of the engagement that the local community has had. And that's truly a testament to the work that you guys have been doing and continue to do. Very quickly, you mentioned finding folks on Facebook. I love these, Armenians of Pennsylvania Facebook groups. We see them in Washington State. We see them all over Seattle, everywhere. Where, if folks listening to this video, to this live, want to get engaged, how can they reach you? How can they get engaged?
I think that through the ANC of Pennsylvania Facebook page, we have a Facebook page, we have a Twitter handle, we have Instagram, we have all of our committee members receive the ANCPA emails, anc.pa@anca.org. So we make sure that every message that comes in gets a response, whether that be Alidz responding, myself, someone else from the team. We have 6 people that receive these email messages. So if you want to get involved, you have questions about the Pennsylvania community, anc.pa@anca.org is the best way to get in touch with us.
Fantastic. And folks, for everyone who's listening to these lives, whether you're listening to it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, if you comment on this post or send us a private message, we'll obviously get you connected with the PA team as well. Any means possible. If you want to be active in Pennsylvania, by all means, get in touch with us. If you're watching this and you're from a different state, send us a message. We'll forward that over to Tamar, and she'll plug you into the state leadership that's relevant to you. One last question on federal level initiatives. We always have, and the pandemic has kind of created the situation where more and more people are being asked to make a phone call, and more, we're seeing more frequently that offices are turning on their voicemail machines, so people are forced to leave these voicemails. What message can you give to those who are getting a little frustrated with having to leave a voicemail rather than having a live human picking up that call?
I would say it's okay if it's a voicemail. They will hear the voicemail. The voicemail counts. So don't let that stop you. Keep calling and keep leaving a voicemail if that's what comes up.
And say what you want to say on that voicemail.
Yeah. Thank you, Lorig. So, you guys have done a phenomenal job on the federal level. And I can attest to that, given the fact that I obviously work with these federal legislators on a daily basis. But you also take care of, and this is kind of the nuance of the region and, Tamar's job and both of yours in your capacities as volunteers, you also handle state and local level issues. And recently, Philadelphia had an issue with the billboard that was a pro-Azerbaijani billboard that was extremely offensive that was put up. Can you tell us a little bit about that and what steps you took to engage the community? Did you engage the community, and what happened at the end?
Alidz, do you want me to take this?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So a billboard recently went up on Interstate 95, which is a major corridor here in Philadelphia, in between two major bridges that cross into New Jersey that's traveled by thousands of people every day. And the billboard essentially said, Azeris and Turks are ready to live in harmony with Armenians. What about Armenians? And it was paid for by a Turkish business association. So in a nutshell, that's what the billboard was. And we all know that this is not necessarily truthful, because people who are ready to live in harmony certainly don't start wars with their neighbors. I think that it was genuinely a story of grassroots, where I'm not even sure who the first person was that saw the billboard, but essentially informed a bunch of other Armenians in the area about the billboard, got a phone script together, worked with the ANC, found some phone numbers, and just started calling and emailing the billboard company in a very, direct and coordinated fashion, stating that this billboard is offensive and it's not truthful.
And was the billboard removed?
Yes, the billboard was removed shortly after, I think, the slew of phone calls started. I don't know, Alidz, did it take about a week, maybe maximum?
If that. Yep.
Yep, a true testament to grassroots activism and that coordinated, well planned out work that you guys lead, that the ANC of Pennsylvania has been leading, and can be repeated in different states and different localities. Certainly, there was a lot of commotion around that billboard. We were hearing it even on the West Coast. And you definitely mitigated that situation very well and very quickly. So thank you for your work on that. Folks, we really wanted to give you an introduction to the work that our local chapters are doing, so you see firsthand the volunteer leadership that puts in the energy and the effort to make sure that the work that our activists are doing, the phone calls, the emails, the rapid responders, that you see the impact that your work has, and the folks on the front line in your very own state and city who help communicate your voice so that that impact is reciprocated, is resounding, and that it continues. Follow-up and persistence. If there's one message I took away from our leaders in Pennsylvania, is that it's all about persistence. That follow-up, that a nice note saying thank you and here's the next thing we need you to do, and then following from saying, hey, we talked about the next thing. Where are we in this process? Have you done it? The community's all eyes are on this issue. Here's the number of people who have been contacting your office. I think the ladies mentioned, hundreds of thousands were contacting. During the peak of the war, millions. We had over 1 million letters going out to members of Congress at one point, just during a week. And that's not to say even the number of phone calls that were being generated to offices, the number of tweeted at members of Congress, and the levels of engagement. Offices were communicating to us how it was a priority on a weekly basis for them, at least on a weekly basis, for them to put out a message about the war. And so we want to continue that. In order to do that, we need you. So please go online, message us underneath this post, email the Pennsylvania team, reach out to Tamar, reach out to us in the ANCA national office. You can email us at anca.org, anca@anca.org. I apologize. Tamar, is there a good email to email you for the region?
Absolutely, ancaer@anca.org.
And Lorig, do you mind repeating the ANC Pennsylvania's email?
anc.pa@anca.org.
There you go. Whether it's a national issue, regional, or a local Pennsylvania issue, please get in touch with us. We are more than happy to plug you in and share and continue high levels of activism so that not 8, but all 18 members of the Pennsylvania delegation are highly engaged on Armenian American issues, are highly engaged on the issues that are taking place in Artsakh, and we reach our high-level goals of security assistance to Artsakh, of humanitarian assistance, and stopping all military assistance to Azerbaijan as well as Turkey. Thank you very much for listening to this. We look forward to talking to our next chapter very soon, and we hope that we see you engaged on our issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.